Hello, my wonderful friends, and welcome back to another episode here at the Best English Podcast. I am so glad you are here with me today. Out of all the things you could be doing, all the podcasts you could be listening to, you chose to spend your time here with me. And that means the world to me. Your time is precious, and I promise to make this session together worth every single moment. My goal is always to be simple, clear, and helpful for both your English journey and your life's journey. Whether you're commuting to work, jogging in the park, relaxing at home, or maybe preparing a meal. Thank you for pressing play. Your support and your presence truly inspire me to continue creating episodes that can help you grow. My name is Sophia, and this podcast is about more than just learning English vocabulary and grammar. It's a space where we learn life skills together, skills that can make you stronger, happier, and more confident in who you are. Here, we improve our English listening and speaking step by step, while also exploring powerful ideas that can change the way we see the world and ourselves. Today's topic is something I'm very passionate about. It's something truly special. We're going to talk about how to train your brain to think differently. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever wished you could change the way you think? Perhaps you sometimes find yourself caught in a loop of negative thoughts, replaying a mistake over and over in your mind. Maybe you feel stuck in a routine, in a job or a life that feels safe but uninspired, too afraid to take a chance on something new and exciting. Or perhaps you simply want to become more confident, more optimistic, and more creative in your daily life. If any of this sounds like you, then this episode was made for you. Here is the wonderful truth. Your brain is not set in stone. It's not fixed in one way of thinking for the rest of your life. Your brain is designed to learn. It's designed to grow. And it's designed to change. This means that you can grow, not just in your ability to speak English, but in your habits, your decisions, your emotions, and your biggest dreams. The way we think is the foundation of everything. It shapes the conversations we have with ourselves, the way we interact with others, how we face life's inevitable challenges, and how we feel from the moment we wake up. If we always think the same way, we will always get the same results and live the same way. But when we start to explore new ways of thinking, ways that are more positive, more open, and more creative, everything in our world begins to shift. Our confidence blossoms, our opportunities expand, and our happiness deepens. So in this episode, we're going to dive deep into exactly how to do that. How to train your brain step by step to think in ways that build a better, more fulfilling life. And please don't worry, I'll keep the English simple and clear, so you can understand everything easily and even practice speaking along the way. Stay with me, my friends. By the end of our time together, you'll have practical, simple tools you can start using today to reshape your thinking and, in turn, reshape your life. Let's begin. So, what does it truly mean to think differently? You've probably heard this phrase before, maybe in inspirational videos or books, but today, let's break it down in a really simple way, so you can not only understand it, but also apply it to your own life, all while improving your English. Thinking differently means consciously changing the usual, automatic way you process information and see the world. It means not always following the same mental roads you've traveled for years. So often, we think in the same patterns every single day without even realizing it. We have the same reaction to traffic. We tell ourselves the same stories about our abilities, and we expect the same outcomes from our efforts. When we learn to think differently, we learn to look at situations from a new angle. We start asking new questions. We search for different answers and possibilities. We become open to learning, to growing, and to transforming our lives. Let's use a very simple, everyday example. Imagine you're trying a new recipe and you accidentally burn the food. What is your automatic thought? For many people, it might be something like, "I'm such a terrible cook," or "I can't do anything right," or "I always mess things up." These are what we can call limiting thoughts. They make you feel small, incapable, and stuck. They close the door to future attempts. But now, let's imagine you paused and chose to think differently. What if you thought, "Okay, that didn't work. This is a good chance for me to learn what not to do next time." Or maybe, "Every great chef has burned a few dishes. This is just part of the learning process." Or even, "It's okay, I'm growing and trying something new, and that's what matters." These are empowering thoughts. They don't deny the mistake. The food is still burned, but they completely change your emotional response to it. This is a perfect example of thinking differently, and this small shift, applied over and over, can change how you feel and act in every area of your life. To understand this better, let's talk about two kinds of mindsets, or ways of believing. The first is called a fixed mindset. Someone with a fixed mindset believes their qualities, like intelligence or talent, are fixed traits. They believe you're either born smart or you're not. They often think things like, "I'm just not a math person," or "I'm not good at learning languages," or "That's just who I am, I can't change." When people with a fixed mindset face a challenge, they often give up easily because they see the struggle as proof that they lack ability. They are often afraid of failure because they believe it defines them as a person. They don't truly believe they can grow beyond their current limitations. But then, there is the growth mindset. This is the belief that your abilities can be developed through dedication, effort, and learning. A person with a growth mindset thinks, "I can get better if I practice," or "I can learn how to do this if I keep trying," or "This is difficult, but it's a great opportunity for me to grow." They don't see mistakes as failures. They see them as lessons. They see effort not as a sign of weakness, but as the necessary path to getting stronger. They keep moving forward. Even when things are hard, thinking differently, at its core, is about moving from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Let's make this even clearer with examples from daily life. Think about your goal of speaking English fluently. If you have a fixed mindset, you might think, "I'll never sound like a native speaker. My accent is too strong." This thought creates a mental barrier. Your brain hears it and says, "Okay, I guess we stop trying." You'll avoid speaking opportunities and your progress will stop. But if you approach it with a growth mindset, you might think, "My accent is part of my story, but I can improve my pronunciation if I practice every day. I'm not perfect yet, but I am making progress." This thought gives your brain power. It opens the door to learning. You start looking for new ways to practice. You listen more carefully, you speak more often, and you improve. That is thinking differently. and it's one of the most powerful tools an English learner like you can have. Consider another example, trying something new. Let's say a colleague invites you to join a local hiking club. An automatic thought from a fixed mindset might be, "No, I'm not a sporty person," or "I've never hiked before. I would be too slow." But what if you chose a thought from a growth mindset? You could say, "I've never tried that before, but it could be a fun new experience." Or, "Why not give it a try? Maybe I'll enjoy it." That tiny shift in your internal conversation opens a new door in your life. You train your brain to be curious and open, not fearful and closed. This can apply to the smallest moments. When your alarm clock rings in the morning, a common thought is, "Ugh, another long, busy day." That thought can make your entire day feel heavy before it even begins. But if you intentionally change that thought to, "Today is a new day with new opportunities to learn and grow," your energy changes instantly. Your brain becomes more alert, more optimistic, and more focused. This is why thinking differently is so fundamentally important. It directly impacts your feelings, your actions, your relationships, and your future. Thinking differently does not mean you ignore problems or pretend everything is perfect. It's not about being fake. It's about choosing a more useful and empowering way to think about your reality. It means taking control of your thoughts instead of letting your old, unhelpful habits control you. And the most wonderful news of all is that anyone can learn to do this. Even if you've been thinking in a certain way for decades, you can change. It happens slowly, gently, and powerfully. Just like learning English, training your brain is a skill that requires practice. It's not a magic trick. The more you practice choosing better thoughts, the stronger and more natural it becomes. So every time you choose a more empowering thought, every time you ask a new question, every time you look at a problem from a different angle, you are thinking differently. You are actively building a better version of yourself. Now you understand that thinking differently is not just about changing what you think, but choosing how you think. It means believing, deep down, that you can grow, you can learn, and you can become more than you are today. And this, my friend, is the first and most important step toward creating a life you love. So why does our brain tend to think the same way over and over again? Our brain is the most incredible tool we have. It's constantly learning, storing memories, and adapting to the world around us. But there's one thing about the brain that many people don't fully understand. It loves habits. It seeks comfort and efficiency in patterns and routines. That is why, over time, we start to think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and react in the same predictable ways, even when those patterns are no longer serving us. This is where the concept of mental habits comes into play. Just like we have physical habits, like automatically reaching for our phone when we wake up, or brushing our teeth in the same way every night. We also have mental habits. These are patterns of thinking that we repeat so often they become automatic, happening without any conscious effort. For example, imagine a person who has the automatic thought, "I'm not smart enough," every time they face a difficult task at work. This thought probably didn't appear out of nowhere. It might have started from a single small experience in childhood, like getting a bad grade on a test or hearing a critical comment from a teacher. But the more they replayed that thought in their mind, I'm not smart enough, the stronger that mental connection became. Over months and years, it transformed from a single thought into a deep-seated mental habit. The brain learns through repetition. When you think a thought or perform an action once, your brain creates a faint neural connection. When you do it again, that connection gets a little stronger. If you repeat it hundreds or thousands of times, the brain recognizes this as important and builds a strong, wide pathway for that thought. It's like walking through a tall field of grass. The first time you walk a certain path, it's difficult and the grass resists. But if you walk that same path every day, soon you create a clear, easy-to-follow dirt trail. Your thoughts work in exactly the same way. The most traveled thoughts become the easiest to think. This is the primary reason our brain tends to think the same way repeatedly. It's not because we are incapable of change. It's because we have spent years, perhaps our entire lives, practicing certain ways of thinking. These repeated thought patterns become our default setting. They become automatic. In a way, the brain is trying to be efficient. It's trying to help us by saving mental energy. Its logic is, why create a new thought or solution when we already have one that we've used before? Even if that existing solution is negative, like anxiety or self-doubt, the brain prefers the familiar path over the effort of creating a new one. For instance, picture someone who has a deep fear of public speaking. Their brain has developed a strong habit connecting the idea of speaking in front of people with the feeling of fear. So, long before they even step onto a stage, their brain is already triggering a stress response, a racing heart, sweaty palms. This isn't happening because they are inherently a bad speaker. It's happening because their brain is simply following its well-worn, automatic path of fear. The same process happens for so many of us in different areas of our lives, whether it's about our confidence in social situations, our approach to learning a new skill, or our patterns in relationships. Our thoughts often follow these old, deeply carved roots because the brain finds it much easier to repeat a habit than to build a new one. But here is the most hopeful and empowering part of this whole process. Once we understand that these are just mental habits, we can begin the work of changing them. Just as we learned them, we can unlearn them. We can consciously choose to create new, better, more supportive habits in their place. Of course, this doesn't happen in a single day. It requires awareness, patience, and daily practice. But it is 100% possible for every single person. The very first step is simply to notice, to become an observer of your own mind. What are the thoughts that appear again and again in your daily life? Are they thoughts that help you, that lift you up and move you forward? Or are they thoughts that hold you back, that keep you small and stuck? Once you become aware of these automatic thought patterns, you gain the power to pause, to interrupt the pattern, and to choose a new thought. This is where real change begins. This is how you begin to train your brain to think in newer, better ways. In short, our brain gets locked into thinking the same way because it's a master of efficiency. It loves habits. But sometimes, that efficiency comes with a great cost. It can keep us stuck in patterns of thinking and feeling that limit our growth, our joy, and our potential. By recognizing these patterns for what they are, just old habits, and understanding how they were formed, we take the first powerful step toward real mental freedom. And please remember, a small, intentional shift in your thinking today can create massive, positive changes in your life over time. You don't need to change everything all at once. Just start by choosing to walk one new mental path today. Now that you understand what it means to think differently, let's talk about something incredibly exciting. A scientific fact that many people still don't know about. It's this simple, powerful truth. Your brain can change. Yes, you heard that correctly. Your brain is not a fixed, unchangeable object. It is not stuck in its ways forever. It has the ability to grow, to learn, to rewire itself, and to change at any age. Scientists have a name for this amazing ability. They call it neuroplasticity. Now, don't let that big word scare you. Let's keep it very simple. Neuro refers to the neurons, the nerve cells in your brain. Plasticity means the quality of being easily shaped or molded. So, neuroplasticity simply means your brain structure and function can change based on your experiences, your actions, and most importantly, your thoughts. Think of your brain like a muscle. When you go to the gym and consistently lift weights, your muscles get stronger, they grow. If you stop exercising, your muscles become weaker. It is exactly the same with your brain. When you practice new ways of thinking, when you learn new skills, and when you challenge yourself to step outside your comfort zone, you are literally building a stronger brain. Your brain starts to create new connections, making it faster, more resilient, and more positive. But if you always think the same thoughts, do the same routine things, and stay in the same comfortable place, your brain structure remains the same as well. Let's use another simple image to understand this. Imagine your thoughts are like streams of water flowing down a mountainside. Every time you have a particular thought, a little bit of water flows down a certain path. If you think the same thought again and again, a small stream becomes a river, and eventually, that river can carve a deep canyon into the mountain. That path becomes very strong, very clear, and the water flows down it automatically. But what happens if you decide to redirect the water? If you stop sending water down the old canyon and start building a dam to send it down a new path? What happens? Over time, the old canyon might start to grow over with plants, becoming weaker, while the new path gets deeper, stronger, and becomes the new default way for the water to flow. This is precisely how neuroplasticity works. What does this incredible science mean for you right now? It means you have the power to build better thoughts. You can literally change the physical wiring of your brain by consciously choosing better, more helpful thoughts every single day. If your automatic thought is, "I'll never be able to speak English fluently," and you repeat it daily, that becomes a very strong and deep canyon in your brain. Your brain gets used to it and accepts it as a fact. But if you start consciously redirecting that water, if you start saying to yourself, "I am learning to speak English more clearly every day, again and again," your brain begins to build that new path instead. Over time, that new path becomes stronger. You start to genuinely believe it, and when you believe something is possible, you start to act in new ways. You practice more. You take more risks. You speak up in conversations. This is how your brain changes. It listens to your thoughts. It observes your actions. It remembers what you do repeatedly. And then it changes its own structure to make those things easier for you in the future. That's why your habits are so powerful. That's why your thoughts are so powerful. And that's why you have the power to train your brain just like you train your body. You don't need to be a neuroscientist to use this amazing ability. You just need to embrace this one simple idea. Your brain is always learning. Every time you try something new, every time you practice a new skill like playing the guitar, and every time you choose to think a new thought, your brain is physically changing. Even right now, as you listen to this podcast in English, focusing and understanding, your brain is building and strengthening its language centers. You are growing in this very moment. That's absolutely amazing. Many people fall into the trap of thinking, I'm too old to change, or my brain just doesn't work that way. But that is simply not true. Modern science has shown us again and again that people can learn new languages, change lifelong bad habits, and build entirely new thinking patterns in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and even older. The brain is remarkably flexible. It is incredibly smart, and it's always ready to grow if you are ready to give it the right instructions. Let's take one more example. Imagine you want to become a more confident person. If every single day you look in the mirror and say to yourself, I am confident and capable, or I believe in my ability to handle challenges, your brain starts to register this information. At first, it might feel strange or untrue, but with repetition, your brain begins to accept it as a new reality. On the other hand, if you constantly feed your brain thoughts like, I'm so shy, or I'm not good enough to do that, your brain believes that instead. Your thoughts literally become your truth because they shape the brain that creates your reality. So, choose thoughts that help you become the person you want to be. Of course, this process takes time and consistency. It doesn't happen overnight, just like building physical muscle at the gym. You need to train your brain regularly. But the more you practice choosing positive and empowering thoughts, the easier and more automatic it becomes. One small thought practiced every day. One new action taken every week. That's how real, lasting change happens. That's how your brain becomes stronger, smarter, and more aligned with your goals. So from this moment forward, know this deep in your heart. Your brain is not a rock. It is not stuck. It is not too old. It is alive. It is flexible. And it is ready to change for the better. You just need to give it the right signals through your thoughts, your actions, and your words. You are not a prisoner of your past thinking. You are the architect of your new thinking. Remember this sentence: you can build better thoughts. Yes, you can. You are already doing it right now by being here. And every time you listen, learn, and practice, you are training your brain to think differently. Isn't that an incredible and empowering thought? Now that we understand the amazing fact that our brain can change, you might be asking a very logical question. If it's possible to train the brain to think differently, then why don't more people actually do it? That is a fantastic question. The reality is, most people don't actively work on changing their thinking, not because they can't, but because there are powerful habits, beliefs, and fears that stand in their way. Today, we're going to explore these common obstacles in simple terms so that you can understand them clearly, recognize them in your own life, and more importantly, learn how to overcome them. One of the single biggest reasons people don't change their thinking is the profound fear of failure. Nobody enjoys the feeling of failing. It can feel embarrassing, disappointing, and painful. Because of this, many people are terrified of trying something new because they worry they will make mistakes. They ask themselves questions filled with fear. What if I try and I fail? Or what if other people see me and think I look stupid? Or what if I find out I'm not good enough? These thoughts can be so paralyzing that they stop people from ever even starting. So, instead of changing their thinking and learning a new skill, they stay exactly where they are, in a place that feels safe, but is ultimately limiting. But here is the deeper truth about failure. Failure is not your enemy. In fact, failure is one of the most essential parts of learning and growing. Failure provides data. It shows you what doesn't work so you can try something different. When you fail, your brain is given a powerful opportunity to learn, to adapt, and to try again with more wisdom. Thinking differently means you stop seeing failure as a final destination and start seeing it as a necessary stepping stone on the path to success. Another powerful reason people don't think differently is that they are surrounded by and listen to negative people. Imagine you want to try something bold, like starting your own small business, or moving to a new city, or dedicating yourself to becoming fluent in English. But then someone close to you, a friend, a family member, or a coworker, says something like, "You can't do that. It's too risky." Or, "That's way too hard for you." Or, "Don't waste your time and money on that dream." These negative voices can be incredibly powerful and destructive. They can seep into your mind and start to poison your own thoughts. Soon, you might begin to believe them. You start thinking, maybe they're right, maybe I can't do it. And you stop yourself from pursuing your own growth. But you must remember this. Just because someone says something, especially out of their own fear or limitation, doesn't make it true for you. Thinking differently means learning to turn down the volume of the negative voices around you and turn up the volume of your own positive, inner voice. It means protecting your dreams from the doubts of others. A third major reason people don't change their thinking is because they get trapped in their comfort zone. Your comfort zone is a mental and behavioral space where everything feels safe, easy, and familiar. You do the same things every day. You talk to the same people. You think the same thoughts. You might stay in a steady job you don't love because the thought of starting something new is too frightening. And it feels comfortable because there are no surprises, no risks, and nothing scary or new. But here is the fundamental problem with the comfort zone. Nothing ever grows there. Your skills don't grow. Your confidence doesn't grow. Your life doesn't expand. If you always stay in a place that's comfortable, you never discover what you are truly capable of achieving. Thinking differently always requires courage. It means taking a deliberate step out of what feels easy and into something that might feel challenging or uncertain. Yes, it will probably feel uncomfortable at first, but that feeling of discomfort is the feeling of growth. It's the feeling of your brain building new pathways. So, let's take a moment to be honest with ourselves. These habits, the fear of failure, listening to negative people, and staying in our comfort zones are extremely common. In fact, almost every single person on the planet has experienced them. Even the most successful people you can think of have felt these things. If you feel fear, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It simply means you are human. These habits are normal, and this is the most important part, they are not permanent. You have the power to change them. You can train your brain to respond differently to these situations. Instead of automatically thinking, "What if I fail?" you can practice thinking, "But what if I succeed? What could be possible?" Instead of accepting the thought, "I'm not good at this," you can replace it with, "I am in the process of learning this, and that's okay." Instead of listening to people who bring you down, you can make a conscious choice to spend more time with people who lift you up, people who believe in growth, and people who inspire you to keep moving forward. These small shifts in your thoughts and choices can lead to enormous changes in your life. It's vital to be patient and kind to yourself during this process. Don't expect to change decades of thinking overnight. Start small. The next time you notice a negative, limiting thought pop into your mind, just pause. Ask yourself a simple question. Is this thought helping me or is it hurting me? If it's hurting you, gently replace it with a thought that is just a little bit better. When you feel the pull of fear, acknowledge it. Say to yourself, "It's okay to feel afraid, but it's not okay to let this fear make all my decisions for me." And when you feel the powerful magnetic pull of your comfort zone, remind yourself that you were made to grow, to learn, and to evolve, not to stay the same forever. So now you know, most people don't think differently because they are stuck in these common mental traps. But you are not most people. You are here, right now, listening, learning, and choosing to grow. And that is powerful proof that you are ready to train your brain to think differently and create the life you truly want. Now that we have a clear understanding of what stops most people from thinking differently, let's get to the most practical and exciting part: how you can actually train your brain to do it. The wonderful news is that training your brain to think in new ways doesn't require any special equipment or a lot of money. You don't need to be a genius, and you definitely don't need to be perfect. All you need is a willingness to practice small, daily actions that will help your brain form new, stronger, and better thinking habits. So now, I'm going to share with you some very easy and effective tips that anyone can do, and you can start using them today. The first and perhaps most powerful tip is to ask better questions. Our brain is like a search engine. It is designed to find answers to the questions we ask it. If you ask yourself negative, disempowering questions like, "Why does this always happen to me?" Or, "Why is my life so difficult?" your brain will diligently search for and find all the evidence to prove that your life is indeed difficult. But what if you started asking better, more empowering questions? Questions like, "What is this situation trying to teach me?" Or "How can I grow from this challenge?" Or, "What is one small thing I can do right now to make this better?" When you ask these kinds of questions, your brain starts to search for solutions, for opportunities, and for lessons. For example, if you get a poor score on an English quiz, instead of asking, "Why am I so bad at English?" which leads nowhere, ask a better question. Which specific areas did I struggle with, and what can I do to improve them next time? This small change in questioning shifts your brain's focus from problems to progress. from being a victim to being a student of life. The second practical tip is to write down your thoughts. There is something magical that happens when you take the swirling, confusing thoughts from inside your head and put them down on paper. They become clearer, less intimidating. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed or stressed simply because our thoughts are all tangled up in our minds. Writing helps you to slow down, to breathe, and to see your thoughts with fresh eyes. You can keep a small journal or even use a notes app on your phone. Try this simple practice every day. Write down one good thought. It could be a compliment someone gave you, a small success you had, or something you are grateful for. For example, today I had the courage to ask a question in English, or I am grateful for the sunny weather today. These small, positive entries train your brain to actively look for the good in your life, to focus on your progress, not just your imperfections. The third tip is something you can do in an instant. Change one word. Yes, a single word can make a massive difference in your thinking and in your emotional state. Let's say you have a frequent thought. I can't do this. This is a very final, closed statement. It shuts down all possibility. Now, try changing just one word, or adding one word. Change it to, I can't do this yet. That one small word, yet, completely changes the meaning. It implies that it's a temporary situation, and that with time and effort, you can do it. Or even better, change the entire phrase to, I can try to do this. The word try is full of hope and action. It opens the door for you to take a step forward. Here's another example. Instead of saying, this is a huge problem, try saying, this is an interesting challenge. A problem feels heavy and negative, while a challenge feels like an opportunity to test your strength and grow. Over time, these subtle word swaps create new neural pathways, making your brain feel stronger, more capable, and less defeated. The fourth tip is to cultivate curiosity. Curiosity is an incredibly powerful engine for growth. It is the desire to learn, to understand, to explore. It's the voice in your head that asks, how does that work? Or, what's something new I can learn today? Instead of being afraid of new situations, curiosity helps you to feel excited and engaged. For example, if a friend invites you to try a type of food you've never had before, instead of automatically saying, no, I probably won't like it, a curious mind would say, I've never tried that before. I wonder what it tastes like. Curiosity trains your brain to view new experiences as exciting opportunities for discovery, not as threats to be avoided. It keeps your mind young, flexible, and open to change. The fifth and final tip for today is to surround yourself with positive input. Your environment has a profound effect on your thinking. The information you consume, the books you read, the music you listen to, the shows you watch, and especially the people you spend your time with. All of these things are constantly shaping your thoughts. If you are always listening to negative news, engaging in gossip, or spending time with people who constantly complain, your brain will naturally start to adopt that negativity as its own. But if you make a conscious choice to feed your mind with better things, like listening to motivational podcasts like this one, reading books that inspire you, and spending time with people who support your growth, your brain will begin to absorb that positive energy. For example, listening to just 10 minutes of a positive English podcast every day doesn't just improve your language skills. It feeds your brain with better ideas and a more hopeful perspective. These tips might seem small or overly simple, but they are incredibly powerful when you practice them consistently, every single day. Remember, your brain is always listening. It listens to the questions you ask it, the words you use, the thoughts you choose to repeat, and the environment you place it in. If you give your brain good, positive, empowering input, it will give you better output in the form of better feelings, better actions, and a better life. It all starts with one small change, one better question, one new word, one curious choice, and one positive voice. Over time, your brain will follow your lead, and you will begin to think and live in a completely new and wonderful way. Now we understand the practical ways to train our brain with better thoughts. But there is a crucial piece of the puzzle we must talk about. Knowing what to do is not enough. You must put it into practice. Just like learning to play the piano or becoming good at a sport, changing the way you think requires regular, consistent effort. It is not something you do once and then you're done forever. It is a daily practice, a little bit every day. The more you practice these new ways of thinking, the more your brain learns and adapts. The more you repeat a positive thought, the stronger that neural pathway becomes. Let me say that again because it is so important. Practice makes progress, not practice makes perfect. Because perfection is not the goal is progress. When you commit to daily brain habits, your thoughts slowly, but surely, begin to grow stronger, more positive, and more supportive of the life you want to live. So, what are some very easy and simple actions you can incorporate into your day to help your brain think differently? Let's talk about some daily habits that don't take much time, but can make a profound difference in the long run. Even if you're busy, tired, or feeling unmotivated. First, try this simple habit. Learn one new idea a day. Each day, make a small effort to learn something new. It can be incredibly small. It could be a new English vocabulary word, a new fact about history, a new perspective on a problem you're facing, or a new idea from a book or a podcast. When you commit to learning one new thing each day, you keep your brain active and engaged. It becomes more curious, more flexible, and over time, you start to see the world and its possibilities in entirely new ways. You can ask yourself a simple question each evening. What is one new thing I learned today? This simple reflection keeps your brain awake, growing, and ready to think better thoughts tomorrow. Next, here's a powerful habit you can do in just 30 seconds. Think of one positive thing before you go to sleep. At the very end of your day, as you're lying in bed, take a moment to intentionally recall one good thing that happened. It doesn't have to be a monumental event. Maybe you had a nice conversation with a coworker. Maybe you enjoyed the taste of your morning coffee. Maybe you listened to this podcast and felt inspired. Even the smallest positive moments count. When you do this consistently, your brain learns to scan your day for the good, not just for the problems and the stress. When you fall asleep with a good thought on your mind, you are more likely to wake up with better energy. Over time, this simple habit can create more peace, gratitude, and confidence in your life. Another transformative daily habit is to adopt this rule. One mistake equals one learning opportunity. Most of us have been conditioned to feel bad when we make mistakes. We feel embarrassed, frustrated, or even angry with ourselves. But mistakes are a normal, natural, and necessary part of being human. In fact, they are incredible teachers. Every single mistake you make contains a lesson. So, instead of thinking, "I failed," practice reframing it to, "What can I learn from this?" For example, if you tried to explain something in English today and the other person didn't understand you, don't tell yourself, "My English is terrible." Instead, tell yourself, "Great, this shows me I need to work on my clarity or find a simpler way to explain that idea. Now I know what to practice." When you start to see mistakes as lessons, your brain stops being so afraid of them. It becomes stronger, braver, and more willing to try new things. And here is something very simple but profoundly powerful you can do every single day. Repeat a short, positive affirmation. An affirmation is a positive statement that you say to yourself to build your belief and confidence. It should be short, easy to remember, and stated in the present tense. Try saying this to yourself every morning when you wake up or every evening before you sleep. I am capable of learning. I am willing to grow. I can think in new ways. Say it slowly. Say it with as much feeling as you can. Even if you don't fully believe it in the beginning, say it anyway. Because when you repeat something to your brain again and again, your brain starts to believe it's true. Your brain says, "Okay, this message is important. I should pay attention." And slowly, your underlying thinking begins to shift. This is not magic. It's the science of neuroplasticity in action. It's practice, and it works. You can even write this sentence on a sticky note and put it on your bathroom mirror or your computer screen. Each time you see it, say it out loud or in your mind. This one simple action trains your brain to think more positively and confidently. Every single day. These small habits, learning one new thing, thinking one good thought, viewing mistakes as lessons, and repeating a positive sentence, might seem almost too easy. But when you do them consistently, day after day, they become woven into the fabric of your life. They become a part of how your brain automatically operates, and the result is real, lasting change, slow, steady, and strong. So, if you truly want to think differently, don't wait for some big, life-changing moment. Don't wait for the perfect time to start. Start today with these small, daily habits. Practice them with patience for yourself, with love for your journey, and with trust in the process. Your brain will follow your lead. It will grow. It will change. And it will help you create a better, happier life. One day, one thought, and one small step at a time. To truly see how these ideas can change a life. Let me tell you a detailed story about a woman named Clara. Clara was 42 years old and had been working as an accountant at the same firm for almost 20 years. Her job was stable. It paid the bills, and she was good at it. From the outside, her life looked successful, but on the inside, Clara felt a quiet sense of emptiness. Every morning, she would sit in her car in the office parking lot, and a heavy feeling would settle in her chest. A thought would drift into her mind, the same thought she had almost every day. Is this it? Is this all my life is going to be? She had a secret dream, a passion she had hidden away since she was a little girl. She loved baking, the smell of fresh bread, the art of decorating a cake. It was the only thing that made her feel truly alive and creative. She dreamed of one day opening a small, cozy bakery. But as soon as the dream would surface, a flood of other, much louder thoughts would rush in to crush it. These were her automatic, fixed mindset thoughts. You're 42. It's too late to start a whole new career. You're an accountant, not a business owner. You don't know the first thing about running a business. What if you fail? You'll lose all your savings and look like a fool. This last thought was the most powerful. The fear of failure was like a huge wall around her dream. So, for years, she did nothing. The bakery remained a fantasy, something to daydream about during boring meetings. Her comfort zone, the accounting job, was safe. The dream was dangerous. The change for Clara began on a Tuesday. It was a particularly stressful day at work, long hours, difficult clients. She came home exhausted and sat on her couch, scrolling through social media. She saw a post from an old college classmate who had just opened a small flower shop. The pictures showed her friend surrounded by beautiful bouquets, her face radiant with joy. Clara felt a sharp pang of envy, but it was quickly followed by a new question, a question she had never truly allowed herself to ask. Why not me? That night, she couldn't sleep. The question echoed in her mind. It was the first crack in the wall of her fixed mindset. The next day, feeling a little brave, she searched online for local baking classes. Her heart pounded as she scrolled through the results. The old thoughts screamed at her. This is a waste of time. You're too old to be in a class with young people. But the image of her happy friend in the flower shop gave her a tiny bit of courage. She found a 6-week weekend course for beginners. With her hand trembling slightly, she clicked the enroll button. The first day of class was terrifying. She was indeed one of the oldest students there. She felt awkward and clumsy. Her first attempt at making a sourdough bread was a disaster. A hard, flat disc. The old voice in her head was merciless. See? I told you. You're no good at this. You should just quit. In the past, Clara would have listened. She would have gone home and never come back. But this time, she remembered the idea of a growth mindset, the idea that mistakes are lessons. She looked at her failed bread, and instead of feeling shame, she tried to feel curious. She asked the instructor, "What did I do wrong here? Can you show me?" The instructor was kind and pointed out that she hadn't let the dough rise long enough. It was a simple mistake, a lesson. It wasn't proof that she was a failure. It was just data for next time. This was a major shift. Clara started practicing this new way of thinking. She bought a special notebook, her bakery dream journal. Every night, instead of dwelling on her fears, she wrote down one small thing she had learned. Lesson 1, sourdough needs patience. Lesson 2, always measure your flour correctly. She also started changing her words. The thought, I can't start a business, was too big and scary. So she broke it down. She changed it to, I can learn about one aspect of business this week. She started reading articles online. How to write a business plan. How to find suppliers for a bakery. The giant, terrifying mountain of starting a business became a series of small, manageable hills. Of course, there were many setbacks. She tried a complex cake recipe for a family gathering, and it completely fell apart. Her family was supportive, but Clara felt a wave of humiliation. The old, I'm a failure, thought came back with a vengeance. She cried that night, but the next morning, she looked at her journal. She remembered that practice makes progress, not perfection. She told herself, "Okay, that was a very difficult recipe. It was a challenge. I learned that I need more practice with that technique." She was training her brain, slowly, painfully, to see challenges not as stop signs, but as guideposts. After the baking course ended, she didn't stop. She started baking every weekend, experimenting, learning. Her kitchen was filled with the smells of cinnamon and vanilla. She started giving her creations to friends and neighbors. The feedback was amazing. "Clara, this is the best carrot cake I've ever had. You should sell these." Each piece of positive feedback was like watering the small seed of her new belief, the belief that maybe, just maybe, she could do this. She took another small step. She found out her town had a farmer's market every Sunday. The thought of selling her things to strangers was petrifying. But she asked herself a better question. Instead of, "What if no one buys anything?" she asked, "What's the worst that could happen? I'll bring some baked goods home. And what's the best that could happen? I could sell one thing." The first Sunday at the market, she sold out in 2 hours. The feeling, the joy of someone paying money for something she had created with her own hands was indescribable. It was more fulfilling than any bonus she had ever received at her accounting job. Clara's story doesn't end with her immediately quitting her job and opening a huge bakery. The change was more gradual, more real. She continued working her full-time job, but now it didn't feel like a life sentence. It felt like a stepping stone, the thing that was funding her dream. She started selling at the market every weekend. She enrolled in an online business course. She was building her dream, one cake, one customer, one new thought at a time. The woman who once sat in her car feeling empty was now waking up at 5 a.m. on Sundays, excited, energized, and covered in a light dusting of flour. She hadn't changed who she was. She was still Clara. But she had profoundly changed the way she thought, and that had changed everything. Let's take a moment now to reflect and remember the core message we've learned together in this episode. We talked about something incredibly powerful, your brain. The main idea, the big message I hope you take away today, is that your brain is not fixed. It can grow, it can improve, and it can learn entirely new ways of thinking. You are not stuck with the way you think today. You have the power to change your thoughts, your beliefs, your habits, and ultimately your life, step by patient step. The key to this transformation is understanding that your brain possesses the incredible ability of neuroplasticity. This simply means it can build new pathways and form new habits with consistent practice. Like a muscle, the more you train it with positive and empowering thoughts, the stronger it becomes in that direction. Throughout our time together, we looked at how most of us get stuck repeating the same thinking patterns every single day, often without even being aware of it. We learned that fear of failure, the comfort of the familiar, and the negative voices of others can often stop us from growing. But the moment we become aware of these mental habits, we gain the power to start changing them. We can ask ourselves better questions. We can write down our thoughts to gain clarity. We can change just one single word in our self-talk, from "I can't" to "I can try." And these small, seemingly insignificant changes, when repeated daily, begin to physically rewire our brain for more success and happiness. So, let me ask you a question to reflect on. What is one specific thought that you would like to begin changing today? Maybe it's the thought, I'm not smart enough to become fluent in English. Or, I always fail when I try new things. Can you take that thought right now and turn it into something just a little bit better, a little more hopeful? Something like, I am still learning, and I am capable of improving. Or, this is a challenge, but I can get better with practice. One simple change like this can be the start of a massive shift in your entire mindset. And here's another question for you. How will you actively train your brain tomorrow? Will you take 5 minutes to learn something new? Will you speak a positive thought out loud to yourself in the mirror? Will you look at a mistake you make not as a failure, but as a valuable lesson? These questions are not just for today. You can come back to them again and again. If you truly want to grow, you must become interested in your own thinking. That is where all real change begins. I also want to sincerely encourage you to listen to this episode again. Each time you listen, your brain will pick up something new. Your English listening skills will improve. Your vocabulary will expand. And the powerful ideas we talked about will sink in even deeper. Repetition is one of the greatest tools we have for learning and growth. If this episode inspired you, if it gave you something useful to think about, please consider sharing it with a friend or a family member. You never know who might need to hear this message today. Your simple act of sharing could be exactly what they need to start their own journey of change. And if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to the Best English podcast so you don't miss our next episode together. Here, we are building a supportive community, a space where you can grow into the best version of yourself, step by step, word by word, in English and in life. Before we finish, I want you to hold this final thought in your mind. Every single day is a brand new chance to think differently and to grow. You already have all the power you need right inside of you. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment or for some external permission. You can begin right now, in this very moment. One new idea, one new word, one new thought. That is all it takes to start changing your life for the better. Thank you so much for being here with me today, for sharing your valuable time and energy. Keep going, keep learning, keep growing, and never, ever forget. You are doing so much better than you think.